It is 9:04 a.m. On December 6, 1917, and a deafening roar shatters the calm harbour of Halifax. The sound rolls over the packed streets like a living thing, rattling windows, tearing shutters from their hinges, and sending a wave of heat that forces a dozen pigeons to rise in a frantic, black cloud. In that instant the city, already strained by war, becomes a tableau of panic and disbelief. Halifax, Nova Scotia, is the Atlantic gateway for the British Empire. By 1917 its dockyards are a hive of activity, steamers groan under the weight of steel, soldiers in woolen greatcoats shuffle between warehouses, and the scent of coal smoke mingles with the salty bite of the sea. The war effort has turned the harbour into a massive logistics hub, loading food, troops, and, crucially, munitions destined for the Western Front. The city's rhythm is measured in the clank of rivets and the whistle of locomotives, a cadence that has become the backdrop of everyday life. On that cold December morning, two vessels converge in the narrow channel that separates the bustling waterfront from the open ocean. The French cargo ship *SS Mont Blanc* is a floating powder keg, her holds packed with 2,925 tons of high explosives, picric acid, TNT, and gun cotton. She is a wartime freight, her deck swarming with a crew that knows the cargo's danger but trusts the harbour's protocols. The *SSIMO*, a Norwegian vessel, carries relief supplies and a few passengers returning from the front. She is lighter, her hull scarred by previous voyages, and she moves with a cautious but steady hand. As the two ships approach the narrowest point of the channel, the pilot aboard *Mont Blanc* receives a warning from the harbour master: a convoy of warships is due to pass, and the channel must be cleared. The pilot, a veteran mariner named William H. Miller, signals *IMO* to stay clear. The Norwegian captain, however, misinterprets the signal amid the fog that has settled over the water. He steers *IMO* toward the middle of the channel, directly into the path of *Mont Blanc star. The two ships collide at a glancing angle, the iron hulls screaming as they scrape against each other. Sparks erupt, a sudden flash of orange lighting the faces of onlookers on the quay. The collision itself would have been a tragic accident, but the real horror begins when the crew of *Mont Blanc* attempts to extinguish the fire that ignites in the galley. Their efforts are hampered by the presence of the volatile cargo. A sudden, sharp bang echoes as a barrel of picric acid detonates, sending a shockwave down the ship's spine. Within seconds, the entire vessel erupts in a fireball that dwarfs any previous industrial accident in North America. The explosion is instantaneous and incomprehensible. A mushroom of flame and smoke rises 300 feet into the sky, its base a searing orange disk that incinerates the wooden warehouses along the waterfront. The blast wave travels outward at supersonic speed, flattening the north end, shattering glass in downtown Halifax, and hurling debris across a radius of several miles. Estimates suggest the blast released energy equivalent to roughly 2.9 kilotons of TNT, making it one of the most powerful non-nuclear explosions in history. In the moments after the detonation, the city is a tableau of chaos. Streets that moments before were filled with market stalls are now choked with twisted steel, splintered wood, and bodies buried beneath rubble. The harbour, once a mirror of calm water, is a boiling cauldron of fire and shrapnel. The shockwave rattles the windows of homes in Dartmouth, across the harbour, and even reaches as far as Boston, where some reports described shattered panes and a distant rumble that felt like an earthquake. The human toll is staggering. Contemporary reports estimate that about 2,000 people are killed outright, with another 9,000 injured, though some historians argue that the death count may be higher because many bodies were never recovered. The victims range from dockworkers and soldiers to women and children who were shopping at the market or simply walking home from church. The explosion leaves a scar not only on the city's landscape but on its collective memory. Rescue efforts begin almost as soon as the dust settles. Neighbors, many of them uninjured, rush toward the devastation, pulling survivors from the wreckage with their bare hands. the Canadian government mobilizes the Royal Canadian Navy, the militia, and local volunteers. Makeshift hospitals sprout in churches, schools, and even the back rooms of taverns. The smell of cordite and burnt flesh hangs heavy in the air, while the cries of the wounded echo through the shattered streets. Among the responders is a young clerk named Arthur Hughes, who, according to later accounts, spent hours dragging children from collapsed homes, his shirt soaked with blood. Nurses work tirelessly, stitching wounds with whatever cloth they can find, while doctors improvise surgeries on broken tables. The city's infrastructure is crippled, the water mains burst, the telegraph lines are down, and the electric grid is silent. Yet the people of Halifax refuse to surrender to despair. As the night deepens, some later accounts claim that investigators believed the Mont Blanc might have been carrying additional explosives in a sealed compartment beneath the main cargo hold, allegedly loaded in New York earlier that year. This story, however, remains unverified and is regarded by most historians as legend rather than fact. The turn in the narrative forces historians to reconsider the decisions that led to the catastrophe. The harbor's pilot had been instructed to keep Mont Blanc outside the channel until the convoy passed, a precaution born from the knowledge that the ship was a floating bomb. Yet the pressure to keep supply lines moving, combined with ambiguous signals and foggy weather, created a perfect storm of error. If the alleged hidden cargo had existed, it would have meant that even a minor fire could ignite a chain reaction of unimaginable scale, but the lack of concrete evidence leaves that possibility in the realm of speculation. In the weeks that follow, the city embarks on a massive rebuilding effort. The government establishes the Halifax Relief Commission, raising funds from across the British Empire. New building codes are introduced, mandating that future warehouses be constructed of fire-resistant materials. Memorials rise on the hillside overlooking the harbor, their stone faces etched with the names of the lost. Yet the scars linger, the smell of smoke clings to the air for months, and many survivors develop what would later be recognized as post-traumatic stress, a condition scarcely understood at the time. The Halifax explosion reshapes not only the city but also military logistics. The British Admiralty issues new regulations for the transport of explosives, requiring stricter segregation of hazardous cargo and clearer communication protocols in congested ports. The tragedy becomes a case study in the dangers of wartime secrecy, prompting a re-evaluation of how much information should be concealed from those who handle dangerous materials. Decades later, the ruins of the North End are a quiet reminder of the blast's power. The streets have been repaved, the shops rebuilt, and the harbor now hosts sleek container ships instead of timber-laden steamers. Yet the memory of that December morning persists in the stories passed down through families, in the soot-stained bricks of the old St. Paul's Church, and in the lingering question that haunts historians: if a similar chain of miscommunication and concealed cargo were to occur today, could modern emergency response and technology contain the devastation, or would a city once again be reduced to ash and sorrow?